The morning mist drifted through the doors of Kurohana Dojo, soft and pale like smoke curling from a quiet fire. Inside, a young warrior named Aaron stood alone on the polished wooden floor. His hand resting on the hilt of his training sword. His breath shook, his shoulders sagged, his eyes dimmed. It wasn't his muscles that had failed him, it was something deeper. Something he couldn't name. Aaron whispered to the empty hall, voice barely reaching the walls. Why am I exhausted, even when I am stronger than before? He had practiced harder than anyone, risen earlier, pushed longer, sacrificed more, and yet the deeper he trained, the heavier he felt. The tiredness followed him into sleep, into meals, into thought. It was not in the bones. It was in the spirit. Across history, another warrior walked the earth untouched by that weight. Miyamoto Musashi. He fought life or death duels, created art, carved sculpture, wrote philosophy, trained relentlessly, and never burned out. How could one man hold so much life, while so many collapse under far less? What truth did he understand that the rest of us have forgotten? Aaron soon discovered something unexpected. Exhaustion is not born from what we do, but from why we do it. Energy doesn't leak through effort. It leaks through misalignment. As he trained, a quiet realization emerged. Comparison, fear, perfectionism, and the need to prove himself were like invisible stones he carried everywhere. Not in his hands, but in his chest. And the more stones he carried, the heavier the world became. This story is not only Aaron's story. It belongs to anyone who wakes up tired, works tired, rests without resting, and wonders why sleep doesn't solve what their soul feels. If that is true for you, stay close. The wisdom ahead may not shout, but it may change something within you. And if you find calm here, if something resonates, if this journey feels like a place to return to, remember this channel. Keep it close. There is more waiting beyond this story. Now breathe, and let the path unfold. Later that afternoon, Aaron knelt before his teacher, Master Renjiro, beneath the shadow of a maple tree whose autumn leaves fell silently at their feet. The dojo grounds were empty. Training had ended hours ago. Yet Aaron remained, unable to quiet the heaviness in his chest. Master Renjiro watched him for a long moment before speaking. His voice calm, almost weightless. You are not tired because your body is weak, he said. You are tired because your spirit is carrying too much. Aaron lifted his head, confused. He had always believed exhaustion came from effort, from labor, sweat, muscle, and will. He worked harder than anyone, pushed farther, slept less, chased improvement, demanded progress. Shouldn't that make him stronger? But Master Renjiro shook his head softly, as though reading the question in Aaron's eyes. Strength is not the problem, he said, direction is. The words lingered in the air. Direction, not effort. Aaron thought back on the past year, the endless drills, the relentless self-criticism, the constant need to prove himself better than yesterday, better than others, better than the expectations he imagined the world held against him. It struck him then that he had never trained simply because the path called to him. He had trained to confirm his worth, to silence fear, to be seen. Master Renjiro stood and placed a smooth river stone into Aaron's hand. This, he said, is what you carry every time you act to impress, every time you compare yourself, every time you chase approval. He placed a second stone into Aaron's other hand, and these stones grow heavier with every day you refuse to see them. Aaron looked down. His hands were full, yet empty. The stones were simple, harmless, but the meaning behind them felt sharp and undeniable. Suddenly, something inside him shifted, as though a door he didn't know existed had opened. He realized the exhaustion he feared was not a failure of stamina, but a symptom of misalignment, a life spent serving voices outside of himself. Master Renjiro walked away slowly, leaving Aaron alone beneath the falling leaves. The wind rustled the maple branches above, scattering red leaves across the floor like small fragments of truth. Aaron closed his fingers around the stones and wondered how much more he carried that he could not see. The day ended, but the question did not. And it was only the beginning. The next morning, the sky above Kurohana Dojo glowed with a pale silver light, as though the sun rose through a veil of fog. Aaron walked into the training hall before dawn, the river stones still in his pocket. The room felt different now, quieter, deeper, as if it were waiting to reveal something he had never noticed. Master Renjiro stood in the center, facing a scroll hanging on the far wall. Upon it was written a single name, Miyamoto Musashi. Renjiro spoke without turning. Many warriors have chased strength. Very few have chased themselves. His voice echoed softly against the wooden rafters. Eren stepped forward, listening. Renjiro continued. Musashi fought more than 60 duels. Some to the death. He trained, painted, carved, wrote, meditated. He gave every breath to the world, and yet he never burned out. Renjiro turned his head slightly, his eyes glinting. Do you know why? Eren hesitated. He had heard countless legends. Musashi was stronger, faster, more brutal than other swordsmen. But that explanation felt hollow now, a story told by people who misunderstood. No, master, Eren said quietly. I don't know. Renjiro raised a finger and tapped lightly against his chest. Because Musashi's actions were aligned with his spirit. Every movement he made served his path. Nothing was wasted, nothing was forced, nothing was done to impress. Eren felt the truth of those words, slow, steady, undeniable. Renjiro drew his practice sword and rested it gently on the floor. When Musashi fought, he said, he was not thinking about victory, or reputation, or approval. When he carved wood, he was not trying to prove his worth. When he painted birds, he was not chasing praise. His spirit, his purpose, and his actions pointed in one direction. That is why he did not tire. Eren closed his eyes, trying to imagine living with such clarity. It felt impossible, like standing on a path without forks, without mirrors, without shadows. Renjiro stepped closer. You, Eren, train with divided intention. Half of you swings the sword, the other half watches, judges, compares, and fears. He paused. Musashi did not split himself. Outside, a crow cried once, sharp in the morning stillness. Eren looked down at his hands, strong hands that shook when no one touched him. Hands that carried stones he could not see. How do I change it? He whispered. Renjiro smiled faintly. You do not change by pushing harder. You change by walking straighter. He gestured to the scroll again. Musashi had no audience in his mind. Only the moment, only the path. That is alignment. Eren stood there, feeling the weight of the sword at his hip and the stones in his pocket. For the first time, he wondered if strength had never been the problem at all, only the direction in which it was spent. Renjiro turned away and spoke a final time as he walked toward the door. When spirit and action move as one, energy becomes endless. The hall returned to silence, and the meaning of exhaustion began to shift. The following week, Eren trained alone in the low courtyard behind the dojo, where bamboo stalks swayed gently in the wind like tall green metronomes. He moved through his sword forms with precision, yet something in his body resisted, a tightness in the shoulders, a tremor in the breath, a subtle heaviness that clung to every movement. It felt as though each strike drained more energy than it should. The more he tried to force strength into his body, the weaker he felt. Master Renjiro approached quietly, his footsteps barely stirring the gravel. He watched for several minutes before speaking. Your body is here, he said, but your mind is somewhere else. Eren paused mid-movement, breath ragged. I'm trying to improve, he replied. I'm thinking about where I'm doing it wrong so I can fix it. Renjiro shook his head. No, you are thinking about how others see you. You are thinking about winning, about failing, about how you look. That is why you drain. Eren felt himself freeze, the sword suddenly heavier in his hand. He realized that as he moved he was listening to a quiet commentary in his mind, a voice measuring, comparing, worrying. To Renjiro, it must have been visible in every tense muscle. When the mind splits, the master continued, energy spills through the crack. He pointed at Eren's stance. Your front foot holds the blade. Your back foot holds fear. You cannot stand like that without losing strength. The words echoed in Eren's chest. He resumed the form, slower this time, but the voice returned. You're behind the others. You're not improving fast enough. They are watching. You should be stronger by now. His heart quickened, his breath shortened, his shoulders sank. Renjiro stepped in and gently pressed Eren's sword downward until it touched the earth. There, the master whispered, do you feel the exhaustion rising? Eren nodded. That exhaustion is not from movement, Renjiro said, it is from resistance to movement. You are fighting yourself with every strike. You swing the sword, and the sword swings back. He crouched and drew a line in the dirt. Musashi moved in one direction, fully. You move in two, the action you take, and the fear you chase. Eren closed his eyes and took a long breath. Beneath the surface of his training, He felt a war he had never named, effort on one side, anxiety on the other. The internal battle consumed more power than any opponent could. Renjiro stood and placed a hand on Aaron's shoulder. "Your strength is not fading," he said. "Your strength is being divided, united, and you will not tire." When the master walked away, the courtyard returned to the hush of rustling bamboo. Aaron remained still, the sword resting against his leg. For the first time he understood, exhaustion wasn't chasing him, he was creating it. And a new fear quietly surfaced. If energy leaks through every divided thought, how much of himself had he already lost? A few days later, just before sunrise, Master Renjiro summoned Aaron to the storage hall behind the dojo. The air inside was cool and faintly scented with dust and cedar. Shelves lined the walls, filled with tools, scrolls, clothing, and weapons gathered over generations. Renjiro stood beside a small table where he had placed a backpack and several stacks of items. "Choose what you will carry," the master said, "not for a journey of distance, but for a journey of spirit." Aaron nodded and began gathering what he believed he would need: spare clothes, extra food, a second training sword, notebooks, blankets, shoes for different terrains, and a small box of charms gifted to him over the years. Soon, the pack was overflowing. Renjiro watched silently, arms folded. Then, after a long quiet moment, he spoke. "Now remove everything that is not essential." Aaron frowned. "But I might need." Renjiro raised a hand. "The path of Musashi begins with this question. Is it useful to my purpose? Not someday, not maybe, now." Aaron stared at the items spread before him. What had felt necessary only moments earlier now felt uncertain. Piece by piece, he removed them. First the extra clothing, then the second sword, then the notebooks, then the charms. Half the pile vanished. Renjiro said nothing. Aaron removed more. Soon, only a single robe, one bowl, and one sword remained. Renjiro nodded. "The way of walking alone," he said softly, "is not about solitude, it is about clarity." They stepped outside into the morning air. Where the bamboo groves whispered like old monks. Renjiro knelt and drew in the dirt. First a figure burdened with a heavy sack, shoulders bent. Beside it, another figure walking upright, empty-handed, light. "Most people," Renjiro said, "carry more than they live. They collect fears, expectations, obligations, comparisons, regrets, stones that serve no purpose. They walk bent beneath invisible weight, and wonder why the road exhausts them." He tapped the drawing of the unburdened figure. Musashi carried nothing unnecessary, not in hand, not in heart. That is why his energy never died. Aaron felt the truth settle in him, quiet and undeniable. He looked at the stone he had carried in his pocket since Renjiro first gave it to him. And for a moment, his fingers loosened, but he could not quite let it go. Renjiro rose. To walk alone is not to be without others. It is to walk without carrying their shadows. Aaron stood in silence as the sun broke fully over the horizon. He felt the warmth on his face, yet the stone in his hand remained cold. The meaning was shifting, the path was narrowing. He understood now that the way was not about addition, it was about removal. Not gaining more strength, but shedding what weakened him. And somewhere in his chest, beneath fear and expectation, a small space of light began to open. The following week unfolded in silence. Aaron woke before dawn, moved through his training forms, ate simple meals, meditated in the same corner of the courtyard, and slept under the same woven blanket each night. Nothing in his routine changed, and yet everything inside him began to rearrange. One morning, as the first light spilled over the tiled rooftops, Aaron felt something startling, a lightness in his chest, subtle but unmistakable. It wasn't joy, not yet. It was the absence of heaviness, the invisible weight he had carried since childhood, the constant tension in his breath, the quiet pressure behind every movement. It had thinned, as though a stone had rolled off without him noticing. During sword drills, his mind, usually crowded with questions, judgments, and silent commentary, softened. He found himself swinging without thinking of perfection, walking without imagining who might be watching, breathing without measuring the breath. The sword no longer felt like something he had to master, but something he could simply meet. Master Renjiro observed from across the courtyard, arms folded, expression unreadable. After several minutes he finally spoke. "Do you feel it?" Aaron paused, letting the sword rest against his hip. "Yes," he whispered. "I don't know why, but today, I feel lighter." Renjiro stepped closer. Because you're no longer performing. You are participating. Eren closed his eyes, letting the words settle. The rest of the day, his movements flowed with an ease he had never known. His steps felt grounded, breath steady, shoulders relaxed. He no longer pushed toward the end of the drill. He simply existed inside each moment of it. There was no internal referee keeping score, no imaginary audience observing mistakes, no urgency to become someone different. And with that shift, another truth revealed itself. What had always felt like fatigue was, in fact, resistance, a lifetime spent fighting his own mind. That evening, Eren walked to the riverbank beside the dojo. The water glimmered under the fading sunlight. Slow and reflective, he pulled the river stone from his pocket, the symbol of everything he had carried. He rolled it between his fingers, felt its shape, its coolness, its weight. For a moment he considered throwing it into the water, but stopped. Because something inside him knew. The stone was never the problem. Holding it was. Eren placed it gently on the riverbank and stood. The air around him felt still, open, wide. From somewhere inside, a quiet realization rose like mist from the surface of the river. He did not need more strength. He needed less effort. And as night settled around Kurahana Dojo, Eren felt ready, not to win, not to prove, but to continue. The turning point had come. And the path ahead was waiting. A month later, the courtyard at Kurahana Dojo buzzed with anticipation. Students gathered in a silent circle, their eyes fixed on the two figures standing across from each other. Eren faced Kato, the dojo's most accomplished swordsman, a warrior known for his speed, precision, and unshakable confidence. Kato had defeated Eren countless times. Every match before this one had ended the same, Eren exhausted and breathless. Kato calm and untouched. But this morning felt different. The air was cool, and sunlight spilled across the stones like gold dust. Eren's breathing was steady, unhurried, his shoulders were loose, gaze soft, mind quiet. The river stone he once carried was gone from his pocket, not because he no longer needed the reminder, but because he no longer feared forgetting. Master Renjiro watched from the edge of the courtyard, his arms resting calmly at his sides. The match began. Kato struck first, swift and sharp, his blade slicing through the air with confident force. In the past, Eren would have tensed, bracing, calculating, scrambling to predict the next move. But now, he simply moved. His body flowed, not reacting from fear but responding from presence. Each step felt natural, each parry effortless. Minutes passed, something strange emerged. Kato's breathing grew louder, his movements slowed, his strikes, once crisp and certain, began to drag with weight. His confidence flickered into frustration. Meanwhile, Eren felt himself becoming lighter. His breath deepened, his focus sharpened, his body no longer carried resistance. For the first time in his life, he wasn't fighting Kato, he was flowing with the moment. The courtyard began to whisper. Students exchanged glances. They had never seen Kato struggle. They had never seen Eren so calm. Under the sunlit silence, the gap widened. One warrior was draining, the other was awakening. Kato launched a final, desperate strike. Eren stepped aside, fluid as water, and tapped the flat of his blade gently against Kato's shoulder, signaling the match's end. Silence. Kato staggered back, chest heaving, sweat dripped from his jaw. His sword fell to his side, heavy as iron. "How?" he whispered, disbelief cracking through his voice. "You're not even tired?" Eren lowered his blade. His voice was soft, steady. "You fought to win," he said. "I only fought to be here." Kato stared at him, eyes wide, not with anger, but recognition. Master Renjiro stepped forward, speaking to all who watched. "This is what Musashi understood," he said. "Energy does not come from strength or speed. It comes from alignment." Kato spent energy on fear, on victory, on identity. Eren spent energy only on presence. That is why he did not tire. The students bowed in silence, absorbing the meaning. Winning consumes, presence restores. Eren sheathed his sword, feeling neither triumph nor pride, only clarity, not a single stone in his chest. No need to impress, no fear of judgment, just breath, just movement, just life, unburdened. In that moment, beneath the bright morning sun, Eren realized something profound. The battle had never been against Kato. It had always been against himself. And today, for the first time, He had not lost. That night, long after the courtyard had emptied and the lanterns flickered low, Eren sat alone beneath the open sky. The moon cast a soft light over the dojo roof tiles. Silver and silent, the air was cool, and the earth beneath him held the warmth of the day. His body was calm, steady, almost floating, not with the thrill of victory, but with the quiet clarity that followed it. For most of his life, exhaustion had been his shadow. No matter how hard he trained, no matter how much he accomplished, fatigue followed him. He once believed it was a flaw, a sign that he wasn't strong enough, disciplined enough, gifted enough. But now, under the silver reach of moonlight, the truth rose within him like something remembered rather than learned. People do not grow tired because they do too much. They grow tired because they carry too much. Every moment spent comparing himself to others had been a stone. Every memory of failure had been a stone. Every imagined judgment, every perfectionist thought, every fear of not being enough, stone. 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 Eren had lived his life with arms full of invisible weight, and that weight had made every step feel steep, every breath feel thin. Exhaustion was not a signal to rest. It was a signal to release. He looked at his hands, no longer trembling, no longer clenched. The muscles that used to burn at the end of each day now felt relaxed. Rested, open. The change wasn't in his body. The change was in his direction. Master Renjiro's voice echoed softly in memory. When spirit and action move as one, energy becomes endless. Eren understood now. We burn out when the spirit fights the body. When the mind pulls away from the moment. When effort is spent on pretending, on performing, on proving. The great weariness of life does not come from labor, it comes from resistance. Musashi had never been exhausted because he refused to divide himself. His purpose, his presence, and his practice all pointed inward, not outward. Alignment, not ambition, had given him endurance. As Eren sat with that truth, a breeze brushed past, stirring the maple leaves overhead. The world felt still, yet alive, as though something vast and ancient were breathing with him. He realized then that exhaustion had been a teacher, one that led him to the doorway he never knew he needed. Without the weight he had carried, he would never have learned where energy truly lived. In the quiet, beneath the moon, he whispered into the night. I was never tired from working. I was tired from trying to be someone else. And with that, the exhaustion he once feared no longer felt like an enemy, but a memory. Before dawn broke, Eren walked alone through the quiet paths around Kurohana Dojo. The world was hushed, wrapped in blue-gray stillness, where every leaf and stone seemed to speak the same truth. Nothing was missing. The air carried the scent of bamboo and river mist. His steps were slow, but steady, guided not by urgency, but by presence. For the first time in his life, he did not feel like someone trying to become a warrior. He felt like someone who already was. His movement no longer strained to prove strength, it simply expressed it. His breath no longer tried to manage fear, it simply moved through it. There was no internal audience, no measurement, no comparison, just the quiet rhythm of existence, step, breath, heartbeat. He looked toward the dojo hall, where so many mornings had begun in exhaustion and confusion. Now, the space felt different, not because the room had changed, but because he had stepped out of the circle of self-judgment. He had stepped off the stage of performance, and somewhere along the way, without noticing the exact moment, he had placed his last invisible stone on the ground. Master Renjiro joined him silently. They stood together, facing the rising sun. You have walked far, the master said. Eren nodded, but the path still continues. Renjiro smiled. The path never ends, it only becomes clearer. The sky brightened, turning from gray to gold. Eren felt a stillness settle in his chest, not the stillness of emptiness, but the stillness of alignment, of clarity, of energy no longer leaking through cracks he could not see. And beneath that stillness lived a truth that carried beyond the dojo, beyond the past, beyond the story itself. Fatigue is not the enemy. It is a messenger, a lantern on the path, revealing where we are misaligned. When spirit and action move as one, we do not burn out. We burn steady. Eren bowed to Renjiro, then to the sun, then to the path itself. With the morning light washing overhead, he whispered, I will walk straight. And the day began. If this story spoke to something inside you, a memory, a struggle, a hope, consider staying with us on this journey. There are more paths to explore, more teachings to uncover, more strength to find in unexpected places. And if you choose to subscribe, you won't miss the stories that follow, stories that may remind you, each week, to put down one more stone and walk a little straighter. Thank you for being here. The path continues.